You know, usually when we talk about career success, we rely really heavily on this metaphor of a rocket launch.
Oh, totally. It's deeply ingrained in our professional culture, I think.
Right, because the idea is that the higher you go, the more of your past you just kind of have to jettison.
Right, yeah.
You leave those entry-level titles behind, let them burn up in the atmosphere, and you just point to the stars and say, I have arrived, I am the CEO.
We measure progress almost exclusively by, like, how much distance we can put between ourselves and that very first rung of the ladder.
Exactly. But today's stack of notes, which includes a fascinating new curriculum guide and a series of really in-depth interviews from La'Shelle Lofton, it completely shatters that rocket ship model.
It really does.
Because we are looking at the professional trajectory of a highly successful founder. I mean, she's a CEO, an author, a consultant, a board member.
Someone sitting at the absolute apex of the corporate mountain.
Right. And yet she deliberately introduces herself to people with this exact quote, I'm still a secretary. Just a really great one.
Which is, I mean, it creates this immediate cognitive itch. It stops you right in your tracks.
It does.
Because it violates basically every unwritten rule of corporate branding.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because my natural reaction, and I suspect the reaction of almost anyone listening to this right now, is just total confusion.
Sure.
Isn't corporate success supposed to be measured by that distance you put between yourself and the starting title?
That's what we're taught.
Why on earth would a CEO deliberately anchor their identity to a role that, society so often dismisses as the very bottom of the food chain?
Well, that cognitive dissonance is exactly why we are diving into this today.
Yeah.
Our mission for this deep dive is to explore the career and the underlying philosophy of La'Shelle Lofton, who founded the Lofton Group.
Right.
We're going to look at the source material to discover how she completely redefines the secretary role. Because this isn't about, like, false modesty.
Not at all.
It's about seeing the front desk not as some entry-level trap you have to escape, but as a profound, enduring philosophy of leadership and service.
I love that.
And honestly, by the end of this, you might rethink how you view every single person keeping your organization afloat.
Because to understand why a CEO would proudly call herself a secretary, we really have to start with the stark and frankly bizarre contradiction between how society views the front desk and what actually happens when you sit behind it.
Yes, the invisible labor.
Exactly. Let's talk about the reality of the desk, because that contradiction is just searing.
On one hand, you have the cultural perception, right?
Right. In popular culture, the secretary or the front desk admin is framed as this low-barrier job. It's seen as low authority, maybe a bit administrative.
Like a place you park yourself to get your foot in the door.
Yeah. So you can eventually move on to the quote-unquote real work. But then look at the specific responsibilities handed to, for example, a public school secretary on day one.
Oh, it's intense.
I was reading through the notes, and it literally gave me secondhand anxiety.
It is a staggering operational load, truly.
On day one, this person is handed confidential student health records. They are managing highly sensitive personnel files.
Right.
They're handling complex financial ledgers. And on top of all that paperwork, they are the first line of defense for managing aggressive or emotional or just panicked parents coming through the front door.
All at the same time.
They are acting as literal crisis communications directors, often before they've even had their second cup of coffee.
And we really need to examine the stakes of that reality. Let's look at the legal compliance piece you mentioned, specifically EIMS.
The Educational Management Information Systems, right?
Yes, because this isn't just typing names into a spreadsheet. EIS tracks highly regulated data. We're talking special education accommodations, attendance rates, demographic reporting.
Free and reduced lunch status?
Precisely. Public schools receive state and federal funding based on exact headcounts and specific student needs reported through systems like EIS.
Which dictates the money.
Exactly. If a school secretary misunderstands the coding system or drops the ball on compliance data, the district doesn't just get a slap on the wrist.
Well, they lose real money.
They can literally lose critical funding for teachers and resources. A single typo can have catastrophic financial consequences.
That is wild to think about. And if they mismanage, like a volatile situation with a parent in the lobby, it escalates from just a bad morning into a massive legal liability for the entire institution.
Absolutely.
It actually makes me think of how a car's shock absorber works.
Oh, interesting. How do you mean?
Well, a shock absorber uses hydraulic fluid to take the violent, kinetic energy of a pothole, and it dissipates it into heat so the chassis of the car doesn't crack.
Okay, I see where you're going.
That is exactly what an administrative professional is doing. A furious parent or a massive scheduling conflict hits the front desk, and the secretary uses de-escalation tactics and problem solving to just dissipate that energy.
Right, before it hits the principal's office and breaks the whole system.
Yes. But because it works so well, you never notice it. If you're driving down a bumpy road and your car is gliding along, you just assume the road is smooth.
That is a brilliant way to frame it. What's fascinating here is how exceptional administrative professionals create a frictionless environment.
Frictionless.
But because they make de-escalation and crisis management look effortless, people mistakenly equate that smoothness with simplicity.
They think, oh, the office is just naturally calm today.
Right.
No, it's calm because someone is furiously paddling underwater to keep it that way.
Which creates a fascinating systemic paradox for these organizations.
How so?
Well, they trust these professionals with their public reputation. They trust them with their most sensitive legal decisions and the financial lifeblood of the institution.
Right.
And yet, simultaneously, they chronically underestimate the profession itself, compensating and treating it as entry-level invisible labor.
It's crazy. And because the stakes are this high, you would assume the training is rigorous, right? But that brings us to the preparation gap. If this role carries the weight of a legal and operational minefield, how exactly are organizations preparing people to step into it?
It's pretty bleak. Let's contrast it with how we treat executive roles. When a company hires a new CFO, they don't just point them to a desk.
Definitely not.
They are given a massive runway. Months of shadowing, transition periods with the outgoing executive, strategic alignment meetings.
Even a new teacher comes in with, a degree, student teaching experience, state certification, and targeted institutional prep.
Exactly. But the school secretary's reality, according to Lofton's interviews, it looks a lot more like this. You walk in, you are handed a heavy ring of keys.
Oh, man. The keys?
Right. You were given logins to 3 different clunky legacy software systems. You know, the ones where the cursor just flashes green and nothing makes sense?
Yes. And the phone is already ringing.
The phone is ringing, there is a line of 6 people staring at you, and management basically pats you on the back and says, figure it out.
Figure it out. That is so wild.
Handing over high-stakes human systems to someone with zero structured onboarding is an astonishing organizational failure.
It really is.
It is incredibly reckless to place the heaviest operational load on the person you have, given the absolute least amount of support.
And if you are listening to this right now and you manage a team or you own a business, this is a really great moment to ask yourself, are you giving your frontline operators a CFO-level runway for success?
Right.
Or are you just tossing them the keys and hoping they have the sheer willpower to survive?
Exactly.
Because for La'Shelle Lofton, she lived this entire ecosystem. She didn't just read a case study about the preparation gap.
No, she started her career right there as a school secretary.
She did. And then she became an EMI coordinator, wrangling all that complex educational management data we just talked about.
Moving up the ranks?
Yeah, then a director, then a consultant, and ultimately the founder of the Lofton Group. But because she lived that figure-it-out reality, she decided to actually fix it.
Which is incredible.
That's why she built Office Manager University, or OMU.
And it's vital to understand that the source material shows OMU wasn't built as some slick commercial product just to generate revenue.
Right, it wasn't just a cash grab.
Not at all. Lofton built it out of absolute necessity. She recognized that if a role carries immense operational weight, treating its training as an afterthought is just unacceptable.
Yeah.
She designed OMU to bridge the gap, treating the front desk as an operational science. She teaches administrative professionals how to build automated intake systems, how to handle crisis communication, and how to use boundary setting as a professional tool.
Boundary setting is huge.
It's really about matching professional dignity with functional rigor.
So let's talk about what that functional rigor actually looks like in practice. Because Lofton breaks down the skill set required to survive the front desk into what she calls the 10 core principles.
Right.
And I won't read them all like a textbook, but the list includes things like customer service, reliability, multitasking, organization, time management, and problem solving.
Foundational skills, certainly.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting. Let me play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go for it.
Because if I'm a hospital administrator or like a startup CEO listening to this, I might push back. I might say, look, my problem solving involves multi-million-dollar mergers or strategic pivots that affect thousands of jobs. A secretary's problem solving is figuring out who covers recess duty when a teacher calls in sick, or finding a lost file.
Right, the stakes seem different.
Exactly. The scale of the stakes is totally different. So how does Lofton justify comparing these skill sets directly?
It is a fair question,
Yeah.
and the answer really lies in understanding the difference between the scale of consequence and the complexity of the execution environment.
Ooh, okay. Walk me through that.
Well, when a CEO has a complex problem to solve, they generally have a buffer.
What do you mean?
They have analysts to gather data, they have an executive assistant to manage their calendar, they can close their office door, and they have the authority to dictate the timeline.
Right. They can say, don't bother me for the next 2 hours.
Exactly. They have control over their environment. But as secretary, they have to deploy problem-solving and time management with absolutely zero control over their own schedule.
Oh, wow. That is a really good point. You can't block out an hour of focused time on your calendar if you're working the front desk.
Exactly. You are at the absolute mercy of the bell, the phone, and the walk-ins. Imagine trying to execute complex data entry for state funding while a parent is screaming at you.
Which happens?
The principal needs a student's file immediately, and the fire alarm is malfunctioning. You have to communicate, problem solve, multitask, and maintain professionalism all in the same breath.
In real time.
Yes, in real time, in a public-facing lobby.
It's real time, zero buffer execution.
It is a crucible. If a CEO lacks problem-solving skills, the company eventually fails. But if the front desk lacks problem-solving, the building collapses that afternoon.
That afternoon. Wow.
Lofton's philosophy highlights that the front desk is the rawest proving ground on earth for human execution skills. If you can master those principles under those conditions, you haven't just learned how to run a desk. You have learned how to run anything.
Which connects perfectly to the quote that started this whole discussion.
I'm still a secretary, just a really great one.
Yes. When she wrote that, she followed it up by saying, the same values I teach secretaries are the same values I carry with me today.
Right.
She didn't keep the title for, like, a quirky branding exercise on LinkedIn.
No, she kept it because she never abandoned the mindset.
The mindset of stewardship, it's this deep understanding that your role isn't about personal glory or performing in a vacuum. It's about holding the ecosystem together so that everyone else can function.
Beautifully said.
When she was a secretary, she held the school together. As a CEO and a board member, she's holding larger organizations together. The mindset never changed, only the radius of her impact.
This raises an important question for all of us, honestly. Has we culturally confused organizational hierarchy with organizational value?
Oh, I think we absolutely have. But let's break down why we do that. I mean, we all know what an org chart is, the little boxes and the lines pointing downwards.
Right.
But why do we inherently assign worth based on it?
Because an organizational chart is clean.
Yeah.
And it offers psychological comfort. It simply dictates geography.
Geography.
Yeah, it tells you where you sit in a reporting structure, who approves your time off, who you give orders to. Status is assigned by that geography. It is easy to look at the top box and assume it represents the most value.
But value isn't geography. Value is created by impact.
Precisely. Value is measured by structural load. How much weight are you actually carrying for the survival of the system? A title tells you almost nothing about a person's structural importance to the daily operations.
It's like the architectural difference between a fancy weather vane on the roof and a concrete pillar in the basement.
Oh, I like that.
The weather vane is at the absolute top of the hierarchy. Visually, it looks great, but if you remove it, the house is completely fine.
But if you remove that concrete pillar in the basement, the one nobody looks at, the entire structure caves in.
Exactly.
We have conflated the visual chart with the structural value. You can have a vice president of special projects who sits very high on the hierarchy chart.
Right.
But if they go on vacation for a month, the company barely notices.
But if the front desk manager is out sick for 2 days, the entire building descends into absolute Lord of the Flies chaos.
Total chaos. And La'Shelle Lofton recognized that the secretary is that concrete pillar. They carry a massive load for this system. She recognized their immense value, regardless of their status on the chart.
So what does this all mean for us? To me, it feels like an absolute epiphany about the nature of leadership.
How so?
Well, we've been taught that success is climbing away from service. We act like service is a toll you pay at the beginning of your career, so you can eventually get a corner office and be served by others.
That is definitely the traditional narrative, yes.
But Lofton proves that true leadership is simply service applied to a wider canvas. The desk wasn't just a stepping stone for her to jump off of and forget.
Right.
It was the foundation she built her entire executive house upon.
And that completely flips the condescending advice usually given to administrative professionals.
Oh, totally.
For decades, the framework has always been, how do you move beyond being a secretary? What's your next step? You're not going to stay there forever, are you?
Right, like it's a waiting room for a quote-unquote real career.
Exactly. But Lofton's career forces us to ask a totally different, much more empowering question.
Which is?
What if becoming an exceptional secretary develops the exact qualities that make an exceptional CEO?
Wow. It means we've been looking at the org chart upside down this whole time. We look at the people holding the whole thing up, absorbing the friction, dissipating the chaos, and we call them a bottom.
It forces a total reevaluation of who the actual leaders are in any given building.
It really does. You know, we started this deep dive wondering why a highly successful founder, CEO, and board member would willingly anchor herself to the title of secretary.
Yeah, it felt like a riddle.
It did, but now it makes perfect sense. For La'Shelle Lofton, being a secretary was never just a job description you outgrow. It was and is a philosophy of excellence, of profound trust, and of ultimate stewardship.
And that leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to mull over as you go about your day.
Yes.
We want you to look around your own life, your own workplace, your own ecosystem. Who is the person quietly carrying the weight of it all right now? Who is deploying those foundational principles under extreme pressure, absorbing the friction so that everyone else can glide along smoothly?
Like people furiously paddling underwater.
Exactly. The next time you walk past a front desk or interface with an administrative professional, I want you to challenge your own assumptions. Are you looking at the bottom of a ladder? Or are you looking at the pillar holding up the entire building?
That is such a great question.
Remember that rocket ship we talked about at the beginning? The one where you jettison your past to reach the top?
Yeah.
Maybe true leaders don't burn off their foundation. Maybe they realize that without the base, you never reach the stars at all.
That is incredibly well said. Thank you for joining us on this exploration today. Keep questioning those labels, keep looking for the invisible labor that makes your world run, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.